Dr. Marcus Winters squinted at his reflection in the polished steel of the Galactic Research Institute's elevator. He straightened his tie for the umpteenth time, muttering a plea to any celestial being willing to listen. Please, for the love of all that's sacred in the cosmos, don't let me mess this up. It was the year 2150, and humanity had finally progressed enough to host interstellar diplomatic missions. As Earth's foremost xenobiologist specializing in alien relations, Marcus had the daunting honor of playing tour guide to the latest extraterrestrial visitor. The elevator chimed, the doors sliding open to reveal a bustling atrium. Marcus plastered on his best welcoming smile and strode toward the security checkpoint where his alien guest awaited. He spotted her immediately. It wasn't hard. She was the only one with skin the color of a deep emerald sea. Liora, the Serapian ambassador, stood out like a jewel in a pile of coal. Her green skin shimmered under the atrium's lights, capturing everyone's attention. She looked remarkably human, save for her verdant complexion and eyes that seemed to hold entire galaxies within them. Marcus's carefully rehearsed greeting evaporated. "Holy," he breathed, then immediately clapped a hand over his mouth. So much for first impressions. Liora's head snapped toward him, her mesmerizing eyes widening in surprise. "I beg your pardon," she asked, her voice melodic and slightly accented. Marcus felt his face heat up. Holy welcome. Welcome to Earth, Ambassador Liora. I'm Dr. Marcus Winters, your liaison for this mission." He extended his hand, praying she wouldn't notice how sweaty his palm was. Liora regarded his hand curiously before grasping it with her own. A jolt of electricity seemed to pass between them at the contact. "A pleasure, Dr. Winters. I look forward to learning about your world." As they began their tour, Marcus couldn't help but notice the stares and whispers following them. Liora seemed oblivious, her attention focused entirely on him and their surroundings. "So, Ambassador," Marcus began, desperate to break the awkward silence, "what do you think of Earth so far?" Liora's brow furrowed adorably. "It's loud and bright, and your gravity is most disconcerting." Marcus chuckled. "Yeah, I imagine it takes some getting used to. Don't worry, I'll catch you if you fall." The words were out before he could stop them. Liora raised an eyebrow, a smile tugging at her lips. "My, how chivalrous. Do Earthmen often make such bold promises to alien dignitaries?" Marcus felt his face flush again. That's not what I meant. Liora laughed, a sound like tinkling bells. "Relax, Dr. Winters. We have a sense of humor on Serap, too." As they continued their tour, Marcus found himself increasingly captivated by Liora's quick wit and insightful questions. She absorbed information like a sponge, her curiosity seemingly boundless. They paused in front of a holographic display showcasing human biology. Liora leaned in, her eyes widening as she took in the information. "Dr. Winters," she said slowly, "this can't be correct. According to this, human males are constantly fertile." Marcus blinked, caught off guard by the question. Yes, that's normal for our species." "Why? Is it different on Serap?" Liora took a step back, looking genuinely shocked. "Different? It's unthinkable. On Serap, we have strictly regulated mating seasons every few years. The idea of constant fertility is, well, it's barbaric." Marcus couldn't help but laugh at her reaction. "Barbaric? I assure you, Ambassador, we manage just fine. Our social structures and cultural norms help regulate reproduction." Liora shook her head, still looking bewildered. "But the energy expenditure alone, the potential for overpopulation. How do you maintain any semblance of order?" "Well, we have various forms of contraception," Marcus explained, feeling a blush creep up his neck. He never thought he'd be discussing birth control with an alien diplomat. "And our educational systems teach responsible family planning." Liora's gaze was intense as she studied him, as if seeing him in a new light. "Fascinating. I'd like to learn more about this unique aspect of human biology." Marcus swallowed hard, suddenly aware of the charged atmosphere between them. "Of course, Ambassador. I'd be happy to provide you with more information, though perhaps we should move on to less reproductive topics for now." As they continued their tour, Marcus noticed a shift in Liora's behavior. Her questions became more personal, her gaze lingering on him longer than strictly necessary. He found himself responding in kind, his scientific detachment giving way to genuine interest in her as an individual. They paused in the botanical gardens, a lush oasis within the sterile research complex. Liora reached out to touch a vibrant orchid, her fingers trembling slightly. "It's beautiful," she murmured. "On Serap, much of our flora is engineered for efficiency. We've lost some of this wild beauty." Marcus stepped closer, drawn by the wistfulness in her voice. "Maybe that's something we could work on together, a cultural exchange of biodiversity." Liora turned to him, a small smile playing on her lips. "I'd like that, Dr. Winters. I find myself eager to learn all I can about Earth and its inhabitants." The intensity of her gaze made Marcus's heart race. He opened his mouth to respond, but at that moment, Liora stumbled, still unaccustomed to Earth's gravity. Instinctively, Marcus reached out to steady her, his hand catching her waist. In that moment of contact, time seemed to stop. Liora's skin was cool and smooth beneath his fingers, unlike anything he'd ever felt. They stood frozen, bodies pressed together, eyes locked. Marcus could hear his own heart pounding in his ears, acutely aware of every point of contact between them. "Thank you, Dr. Winters," Liora said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. Marcus nodded, unable to find his voice. He reluctantly released her, immediately missing the contact. "Perhaps we should continue the tour," he managed to say, his voice rougher than he intended. As they walked on, both were acutely aware of the shift that had occurred. The air between them crackled with unspoken intention, a mix of scientific curiosity and budding attraction that neither was fully prepared to acknowledge. They reached the final stop on their tour, the Interspecies Communication Center. As they entered, a cacophony of alien languages filled the air, holographic displays flickering with translations. "This is where we coordinate all our diplomatic efforts with other species," Marcus explained, grateful for the distraction. "We've made contact with over a dozen alien civilizations so far." Liora's eyes lit up with excitement. "Incredible. Serap has only established relations with 3 other species. Your world seems so diverse." As they walked through the center, a commotion near one of the communication stations caught their attention. A harried-looking scientist was gesticulating wildly at a holographic display showing what appeared to be a large gelatinous blob. "No, no, no," the scientist shouted. "I said we want to establish peace relations, not peace relations. We don't want to be filled with pieces of you." Marcus groaned, recognizing the alien species on the display. "The Glarn," he explained to a bewildered Liora. "Lovely people, but their language is entirely context-dependent. Makes for some interesting translation errors." Liora giggled, a sound that made Marcus's heart skip a beat. "I can see why your job is so crucial, Dr. Winters. The potential for interplanetary incidents seems high." As they made their way back to the diplomatic quarters, Marcus found himself reluctant to end their time together. The day had been a whirlwind of discovery, not just about Serapian culture, but about the unexpected connections that could form across the vastness of space. "Well, Ambassador," Marcus said, pausing at the entrance to her quarters, "I hope you found the tour informative." Liora's lips curved into a smile that made Marcus's knees weak. "Informative doesn't begin to cover it, Dr. Winters. You've given me much to think about and much to look forward to in our future interactions." The weight of her words hung in the air between them, laden with possibility. Marcus felt as if he stood on the precipice of something monumental, something that could change not just his life, but the relationship between their 2 worlds. "I'm glad to hear that," he replied, his voice low and earnest. "I look forward to our continued collaboration, Ambassador Liora." As they said their goodbyes, both Marcus and Liora knew that this was only the beginning. The spark that had ignited between them promised to burn brighter in the days to come, challenging their preconceptions and potentially reshaping the future of interplanetary relations. Marcus watched Liora disappear into her quarters, his mind whirling with the events of the day. He had expected to meet an alien diplomat and exchange scientific knowledge. Instead, He found himself captivated by a being who challenged everything he thought he knew about life, love, and the universe itself. As he walked back to his lab, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that his life had irrevocably changed. The future stretched out before him, full of uncertainty and excitement. Whatever came next, he knew one thing for certain: nothing would ever be the same again. And somewhere in the back of his mind, a small voice whispered a thought he wasn't quite ready to acknowledge. He was falling head over heels for a woman from another world. Dr. Marcus Winters found himself standing in front of his bathroom mirror the next morning, trying to tame the wild curls that seemed to have a life of their own. He had hardly slept, his mind replaying every moment of his tour with Ambassador Liora. Her laughter, her curiosity, the way her skin had felt under his hand. It all lingered in his thoughts, making concentration difficult. A knock on his door jolted him from his reverie. He glanced at the clock and cursed under his breath. He was running late. Hastily shrugging into his lab coat, he made his way to the door, opening it to find his colleague, Dr. Elena Martinez, waiting with a bemused expression. "Marcus, you look like you've seen a ghost," she teased, her dark eyes sparkling with amusement. "Morning, Elena," Marcus replied, trying to sound casual. "Just a lot on my mind." Elena raised an eyebrow. "I heard about your tour with the Serapian ambassador. Word around the Institute is that it went, interestingly." Marcus groaned inwardly. "Great. Gossip spreads fast around here." Elena laughed. "Relax. Everyone's just curious about her. You did good, Marcus. Now, are you ready for today's briefing?" Marcus nodded, falling into step beside her as they made their way to the conference room. The Institute was abuzz with activity, scientists and diplomats bustling about, preparing for another day of groundbreaking work. As they entered the conference room, Marcus couldn't help but scan the room for a flash of green. His heart skipped a beat when he saw Liora seated at the far end, engaged in a lively conversation with Dr. Ahmed Patel, the head of the xenobiology department. She looked up and met his gaze, her smile brightening the room. Marcus felt a rush of warmth and returned her smile before quickly taking his seat. The briefing began, with Dr. Patel outlining the day's agenda, which included a collaborative project between Earth and Serapian scientists. As the meeting progressed, Marcus found it increasingly difficult to focus on anything other than Liora's presence. Finally, the briefing concluded, and the room began to empty. Marcus lingered, hoping for a chance to speak with Liora. She approached him, her eyes twinkling with amusement. "Good morning, Dr. Winters." "Good morning, Ambassador," Marcus replied, feeling his heart rate spike. "I hope you slept well." Liora chuckled softly. "I did, thank you. Though your Earth beds are quite different from what I'm used to." "I can imagine," Marcus said, smiling. "I wanted to ask if you'd like to join me for lunch later. There's a great spot nearby with an amazing view of the city." Liora's eyes lit up. "That sounds wonderful. I'd love to." Marcus felt a surge of relief and excitement. "Great. I'll meet you in the atrium at noon?" "Perfect," Liora agreed, her smile sending a thrill through him. As they went their separate ways, Marcus felt a sense of anticipation building. He spent the morning immersed in his work, but his thoughts continually drifted to Liora. When noon finally rolled around, he found himself hurrying to the atrium, his heart pounding with excitement. Liora was already there, examining a display of Earth flora with keen interest. She turned as he approached, her smile making his heart skip a beat. "Ready for lunch?" he asked, trying to sound casual. "Absolutely," Liora replied, her eyes sparkling. They made their way to the Institute's rooftop garden, which housed a small cafe with panoramic views of the city. The midday sun bathed the garden in a warm glow, and a gentle breeze rustled the leaves of the exotic plants that surrounded them. Marcus led Liora to a table near the edge of the garden, where the view was most spectacular. As they settled in, a waiter appeared to take their orders. Marcus recommended a selection of Earth dishes, eager for Liora to experience the variety of flavors. As they waited for their food, they talked about their respective worlds. Marcus found himself captivated by Liora's descriptions of Serap's vibrant ecosystems and advanced technologies. In turn, he shared stories of Earth's diverse cultures and history, feeling a deepening connection with her as they spoke. Their food arrived, and Liora sampled each dish with evident delight. "These flavors are incredible," she exclaimed. "So different from anything we have on Serap." Marcus watched her with a smile. "I'm glad you like it. There's so much more to explore." They lingered over their meal, the conversation flowing effortlessly. Marcus felt a sense of ease with Liora that he had never experienced with anyone else. As they finished their lunch, he glanced at his watch and sighed. "I suppose we should get back to work." Liora nodded, though she seemed reluctant to end their time together. "Yes, we have much to do." As they stood to leave, Marcus hesitated, then took a deep breath. "Liora, I really enjoyed this. Would you like to do it again sometime? Maybe dinner?" Leora's eyes sparkled with warmth. "I'd like that very much, Marcus." They walked back to the Institute side by side, the connection between them growing stronger with each passing moment. Marcus felt a sense of hope and excitement for the future, knowing that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. The following days at the Institute of Xenobiological Studies were a whirlwind of activity. Earth and Serapian scientists collaborated closely, exchanging knowledge and ideas. The air buzzed with the excitement of discovery as both sides delved into each other's technologies and biological systems. Dr. Marcus Winters and Ambassador Liora continued to spend time together, their bond growing with each shared meal and conversation. The complexities of their respective worlds were not barriers but rather bridges that brought them closer, each encounter a dance of mutual fascination and understanding. One evening, Marcus found himself walking through the Institute's botanical gardens, a serene space filled with plants from both Earth and Serap. He had arranged to meet Liora there, and as he approached the center of the garden, he spotted her admiring a cluster of luminescent Serapian flowers. Their soft glow illuminated her face, casting a gentle light in the gathering dusk. "Liora," Marcus called out softly, not wanting to startle her. She turned, her face lighting up with a smile that sent a warm thrill through him. "Marcus," she greeted, her voice soft and melodic. "These flowers remind me of home. They're called Celestia noctis on Serap. They bloom at night and emit a bioluminescent glow, much like your fireflies." "They're beautiful," Marcus replied, stepping closer. "Just like you." Leora's eyes sparkled, and she looked away, a faint blush coloring her cheeks, a Serapian trait, Marcus had learned, that caused the usually green skin to deepen in hue. "You have a way with words, Dr. Winters." He chuckled, feeling a rush of affection for her. "Just speaking the truth, Ambassador." They walked through the garden together, talking about their day's work. Marcus shared his excitement about the latest findings in the joint research project, while Liora described her ongoing cultural exchange initiatives. As they strolled, the conversation turned to more personal topics. "Do you ever miss home?" Marcus asked, curious about her experiences away from Serap. Liora nodded, her gaze distant. "I do, especially my family and the familiar landscapes of Serap. But I also find joy in the new experiences and the wonderful people I've met here on Earth." Marcus felt a pang of guilt, wondering if she ever felt isolated or out of place. "If there's ever anything I can do to help make you feel more at home, please let me know." Liora smiled warmly at him. "You've already done so much, Marcus. Your kindness and companionship have made my time here truly special." They continued walking until they reached a small pavilion overlooking a tranquil pond. The pavilion, designed with both Earth and Serapian architectural elements, was a symbol of the growing partnership between the two worlds. They sat down on a bench, the soft sounds of water and night creatures surrounding them. After a moment of comfortable silence, Liora spoke again. "There's something I've been wanting to ask you, Marcus." He turned to her, intrigued. "What is it?" Liora hesitated, then looked him in the eyes, her expression serious. "Do you believe that peace and understanding between our species are truly possible? Not just here, but on a larger scale?" Marcus considered her question, sensing the depth of her concerns. "I believe it's possible," he said slowly, "but it will take time, patience, and a lot of effort from both sides. Understanding each other, learning to see past our differences, that's the key. And it's people like us, willing to bridge the gap, who will make it happen." Liora nodded, her gaze thoughtful. I hope you're right. Sometimes, the challenges seem overwhelming. But moments like this, being here with you, give me hope. Marcus reached out and gently took her hand, his heart swelling with emotion. We'll face those challenges together, Liora. You're not alone in this. She squeezed his hand, her eyes shining with gratitude. Thank you, Marcus. Your support means more to me than you know. As they sat there, the night deepening around them, Marcus felt a profound sense of connection with Liora. It was as if, in that quiet garden, they were not just representatives of their worlds, but two souls finding common ground in a vast universe. The soft rustling of leaves and the distant chirping of crickets created a tranquil backdrop as they continued to talk, sharing their dreams and fears, their hopes for the future. The night felt timeless, a moment suspended between the known and the unknown, where anything seemed possible. As the hours passed, Marcus and Liora grew closer, their shared laughter and whispered secrets weaving a tapestry of trust and affection. It was a night that neither of them would ever forget, a night when two worlds felt a little less distant and two hearts beat in sync, finding solace in each other's presence.